Hey there, we're back. Did you miss us? We've been gone for 2 weeks and we have figured out a game plan of what we want this all to look like moving forward. Here's a little hint. What else am I supposed to say? All right, so if you joined in like 2 weeks ago, we kind of announced that we have been doing this for over 2 years, like I think 87 consecutive weeks. It killed Ty a little bit to take 2 weeks off because we really broke our streak. But 2+ years of doing videos every single week has served us really well. It's served our community really well, and it's allowed people to grow in a way where they can grow for free and they can get to know me and my teaching style before they dive into the next level of KGA education, which is through our resources, templates, and courses and memberships. So what we have realized though is that because we've done this so much for so long, we have done this. I feel like we committed to it, and we are still committed to it, but we have decided to do some intentional changes, to implement some changes that will allow us to be more intentional with the content that we create and fill some of the holes that we've seen in some of the content in the way that we're producing content for our audience. So basically, we have 2 announcements to make today. First things first, we've been doing 4 YouTube videos a month. So every single week there's a new video, which is crazy. And what we have decided to do for the sake of intentionality, for the sake of our capacity level, and for the sake of being intentional with if there's other aspects of content that are wanting to be created, we've decided to go from 4 episodes a month to 2. So every other week there will be a YouTube episode. And so if you love YouTube and you're like, no, I love this stuff, don't go away. We're not going away. We're not going away at all. We're still here, and it will be better than ever because with 2 episodes a month, that allows us to be even more intentional, and we're not going to scramble. Not that we were ever scrambling. Some days we scrambled, but we'll be more intentional with the content. We'll be able to make the videos more in depth. We'll be able to teach at a more intentional level. And when I say intentional, what I mean is we know exactly the question that we want to answer, and we want to answer it as thoroughly as possible. And we want to have the time to brainstorm and plan and piece together and outline these episodes so it serves you really, really well. Your time is valuable, whether it is watching a 12-hour KJ course or whether it is watching an 8 to 15-minute YouTube video. We want your time to be well spent whenever you are learning from me. So what we're going to do with YouTube is twice a month, we will have a YouTube episode, and we're excited to dive into that and to figure out, okay, what is our new rhythm? And what that means is that we have 2 other weeks during the month where there's a break in content. But instead of having a break from content, that leads me to announcement number 2. A lot of you know we have a podcast that has sat dormant. There's a few episodes, and you know what? The response to those episodes have been amazing. But because of our involvement with YouTube and that it's a weekly commitment, the amount of time in my life to commit to a podcast is very minimal. So what we've done and what we've realized is that the reason we started YouTube was because I used to create content for photographers every single day for 8 years. I mean, I blogged, this was way before kids. I blogged every day for 8 years. And that quite honestly was the beginning of this whole side of my life. I started teaching people for free because I loved feeling like, oh my gosh, I'll just make a blog post and answer these questions that I'm getting in email. That led to workshops. That led to one-on-one coaching. That led to speaking at conferences, hosting like online events, in-person events, courses, templates, all the things. It has now led to running a massive business that employs literally my entire family. And we love that, but I wasn't creating content anymore. Since I had my first child, I stopped blogging. I stopped creating content in that way, and I missed that. And it felt like this huge hole in really my life in the business. And so we created a YouTube channel over 2 years ago because I wanted to be able to teach again for free, and I wanted to be able to nurture and help our audience without them having to spend $400 on a photography course. What I love about YouTube is that it is helping people grow from a technical perspective. If you've ever started a YouTube channel or you've really started any business at all that has a social media presence, you know that you've got to find your lane. Like you've got to figure out, who am I in this space? Because you can't be everybody, right? You can't be the girl on YouTube that shows like family birthday parties and the person that does technical reviews of things and the person that fills this void and this void and this void. It really helps you to figure out where the need is and how I can step in and fill a void. And I have found that on YouTube. I love being able to teach in a way that is very different. And there's someone said once, they said, there's an approachability to the way that you teach that's hard to find on YouTube. And I love being able to fill that space because there's so many other educators on here. And I love figuring out, like, we found our sweet spot. But what we have realized with YouTube is that there was a part of my blog back in the day that I loved, that really united our audience and allowed me to share all aspects of my life, that YouTube is not the place for, at least not on this channel. And I'm not interested in starting multiple YouTube channels. What I'm talking about, I used to share about our family used to do vacation differently. We've done family life differently. We're raising our kids differently. We think about business differently. We've grown our business differently, and we have a life full of friends doing the same thing. There's so much that I'd love to share when it comes to business, growing a photography business, growing a family, all these things. And that content is so valuable, but it's not necessarily what my lane is on YouTube. I feel like I've found my lane here, but that leaves a void. And so what we've decided to do with 2 YouTube episodes a month and 2 weeks where we're not going to have a YouTube episode, we have decided to bring back the podcast. And what I mean by that is the podcast is still there. You can still listen to episodes, but we have not had a strategic plan to be able to have constant content in that format. So if I experience something crazy in business and I'm learning, like, my brain's exploding with crazy new things that I'm learning in business as a business owner, it's probably going to be more of a long format conversation. And that's not really great for YouTube. And so if we are growing in our family, we have so many questions coming in about, like, how in the world do you work as a mom and have almost four kids, 5 and under? I could tell you a lot of things, but it's a long format conversation. And so that type of content that I miss having on our blog is now going to live on the podcast, and not just family, but also business and higher level thinking. I have so many people in my life that I would love to have conversations with, whether it's how do you have a best friend when you're 34 and in the throes of everyday life with kids and running a business, to how do you grow and scale a business in 2022? Like, what has changed since 2008? There's all these different things from business to personal that I'm excited to dive into twice a month on the podcast, while still educating about photography and business and more of the technical side of things on YouTube. The really cool thing about the podcast is that, unlike YouTube, I have freedom to kind of experiment and try out different types of content. If I veer away from what we have found is our lane on YouTube, the algorithm literally punishes me. And it's not that I don't feel like, I know I could post whatever we want, and it's not all about views, but when you are paying for production of a YouTube channel and you have goals and you have a team that needs people to convert and become students and all these things, it is hard to spend week after week doing episodes that are just what's on my heart, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh man, we're losing momentum. I love teaching and I love sharing and I love the technical side of being able to help photographers figure out their style, figure out how to grow in their business. And so I like my lane on YouTube, but I have another part of me that I want to be able to share freely. And in the podcast world, much like the blogging world, you have the freedom to test out pieces of content, and you're not going to be as noticeably punished if it's content that just doesn't resonate quite as much. So I want to have the freedom to be able to share all aspects of the content I want to create. But I've realized over the last 2 years, YouTube is not the place to do that. YouTube is the place to find your niche, find your thing, and stick with it. And I'm doing that, and I'll continue to do that. But now I get to also try out the things that I have missed sharing about on the podcast. And we have the capacity, if I'm being fully transparent, I need the accountability. Some of you have said, Katelyn, there's like a series on your podcast you never finished. I'm like, oh yeah, I know. I know. The reason why it hasn't been finished is because it is not a part of something that I have an investment in monthly. And there are so many other important things in my life. I have multiple children. We have started a school. I want to be a present wife, and I want to actually spend time at the dinner table with my children every night. So there are priorities, and the way that I can make the podcast happen realistically is to scale back another part of my life in order to make room for something new. I can't keep adding and adding, adding. And maybe for you might be watching this and thinking to yourself, like, I don't know why I wanted to listen to this girl's update, but maybe that one piece was for you. If you want to grow and scale and do something different in your life or your business, for a lot of us who are in the season of life where we have children or we just have a lot of responsibility and we feel like we're at capacity, you can do the things that you long to do, but you've got to make space for it without trying to just expand yourself more and more. I cannot expand myself more. I literally I'm expanding physically, growing a new child. I don't have the capacity to just make up more hours in my day. And so if I want to pursue sharing new type of content with you, I have to scale back in one area, and so that I can grow a new one. So what's exciting is that YouTube's not going anywhere. If anything, it's getting better. And the even more exciting thing from my perspective is that I get to be committed to something that I tried to start years ago and was never able to make that commitment happen because of the season of life that we're in. And so we have found a way to marry the two and have both types of content for our audience. And so if you are someone that loved the blog back in the day, by all means, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Is that what you say? Subscribe? Okay, good. I'm a podcaster! Great. Anyway, if you loved the blog back in the day and you're like, that's how I found you, Katelyn, well, make sure you subscribe to the podcast because you're going to love that content. That is the content that you fell in love with our whole brand. It's through that type of content. And so if you are someone that's like, man, I've learned great stuff that I've implemented. I love the way that you teach photography. It's so different than a lot of people on YouTube. Then still stay subscribed to the YouTube channel and join us every other week for new content. So before we go, I just want to say thank you for all the comments, the congratulations, the well wishes from the video 2 weeks ago. We saw them. Our team has documented them. We have looked at your suggestions, and we're very thankful that you are, one, excited for us and support us and our brand. And also, now that you know what the game plan is, if you have thoughts, comments, suggestions on content for the podcast, and maybe, I have so many friends in our business life that I would love to have conversations with, but if you specifically either want to hear me talk about something or explain something, or want to see me interview a specific friend that you know that we know and love in the industry, let me know in the comments below. I want to hear from you. I want this to serve you well because this is not just some opportunity for Katelyn to hear herself talk. I already have the thoughts in my head, so I want to share the thoughts that will help you and that will enhance your life and bring more intentionality to your life and to your time. So leave those below. Get excited. First podcast will be next week. And so I will see you there, hear me there. You'll just log on, whatever you call it. Thank you for watching. Tune in next week for very first podcast episode with our new game plan. See you there. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.